Today, we are going to be doing day 2. That's rounds 2 and 3 of this 2026 NFL mock draft. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Go watch the first video, but we are going to be doing a recap of the first round. Below my face is my board. If you guys want to understand, because this is solely based on my all 22 tape studies, it is not designed to be contrarian. And then you guys can end up signing up for my Patreon, where you get every single evaluation and every single extended video that we have of the positional rankings on the show. $5 a month, and you get everything, including the full list of about 300 players and an exact reason as to why they are where they are. But before we jump into this, let's get a word from our sponsor. Hey y'all, I have huge news. With college football and the NFL returning, I have teamed up with DraftKings Sportsbook with an amazing partnership to bring you guys an incredible offer. When using code HMS, new customers bet $5 and instantly get $300 in bonus bets. Do you love the thrill of live betting? Then DraftKings has you covered. Bet on live in-progress games as they happen. Stay in on the action and use your bonus bets on DraftKings same game parlays for an even bigger payout. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, do not worry. You can still join in on the fun using a DraftKings daily fantasy option. I myself am in Texas, so that is something that I will be continuing to use. So this is going to be what it looks like. And what's awesome here is that you guys get to see a plethora of sports. This show focuses on football, but if you guys have a passion for anything else, you also get to partake. Sign up using the URL or using the promo code HMS. And a huge thank you to DraftKings for sponsoring this episode. All right, let's get right into this, discussing what ended up going down. First off, Arch Manning is not considered coming out in this. And secondly, if you guys watched the first video, PFF's whole entire roster was input incorrectly. The import, because obviously it's probably a spreadsheet, they end up importing it, was incorrect. Some of the positions were off. That is no longer the case, and literally ended up happening today because I redid it like an hour and a half ago, and then it was wrong, and I ended up redoing it again because I made a mistake, and everything's right. So thank you, PFF, for listening and being able to, go and correct that. God bless. And so super happy about that. We'll be discussing the trades primarily. If there are placeholders, which there are not yet, then we'll talk about that. But regardless, the number 1 pick, the draft order is not set by me. We had the Giants making a move with the Jets. It took 2 second-round picks to move up. If you think there should be more, by all means, do that yourself. It's not going to really affect this, but it does give the Giants that number 36 overall pick as well for us to play around with in this episode. There are trades, of course, but Lenore Sellers is my favorite player in the class. Now, if you like Cade Klubnik more, I still think this would be a valid move, and I would just take Sellers with the 2nd pick. So I would let you guys be able to discuss that. The result of said trade down is getting the right tackle Spencer Fano at number 4. I'm a huge fan of Spencer Fano. I think that he is a superstar as well. And my thought process is the Giants, A, shouldn't be there at number 1 in the first place, but B, and more importantly, they have one of the toughest schedules you'll see. So I do think that there might be reasons outside of roster talent that would end up leading the Giants to have the number 1 pick. And I don't think it would be a QB issue there with Dart. I feel like they would try to continue investing in other areas where they can still end up getting great value, one of which being a pretty weak tackle class, but getting a top-end right tackle in Spencer Fano. But we continue down the board. Again, use your eyes to feel free to go check those out or check it out in the original video. We had the Seattle Seahawks make a deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Steelers moved up to select their star quarterback in Drew Aller, cost them a 3rd as well as a 5th, which I think is a good deal for both teams because I didn't feel comfortable with the Seahawks at that spot getting the right value for what they wanted to get. Via that trade back, they ended up getting a star pass rusher here in LT Overton, who I love the flexibility in a Mike McDonald defense. So continuing on, we actually kept it pretty straightforward. Again, I did not do the draft order. PFF has it updated, but I will say I don't think they've adjusted the draft order to reflect how good Green Bay is going to be with Micah Parsons. That just means Green Bay will have a better 2nd-round pick. But, Dallas ends up netting Caden Proctor as well as Kenny Clark, essentially, for Micah Parsons plus a future first. See how that ends up going and turning out. But we had a trade here with Washington and Kansas City. Kansas City moves up and selects a big physical boundary corner with super high IQ and Jermod McCoy. We'll see if he can end up, maintaining the level of play that he has before the ACL tear in January. So far, he's actually already shown to be back on the field. Excited to see him potentially versus some in like actual games soon enough. But we still need to see him get from personal drills to team drills to then like team actual scrimmages to then the game. So we'll see how long that journey is going to be. Hopefully it won't be too long. But via that trade back, Cassius Howell, who ended up moving up into the top 50, ends up going at number 29 to the Commanders. And so one position change that I think still needs to potentially happen. I looked at Tomas Remak. I think that's how he says it. I went to VT's website. It's Tomas. So I know that's how you say his first name. I used to say Thomas Rimac. Not how you pronounce it. For once, I actually know how to pronounce the first name at least. I think it's Tomas Rimac. But he is listed, according to our lads, at that guard spot. He was a guard at West Virginia. I think it wouldn't be bad because I have him listed as an offensive lineman to where I think he could play tackle. But, I will just put it out there. He is not necessarily a tackle or a guaranteed tackle. And same thing here with Francis Mauigoa. I think that he is going to play right tackle, so it's accurate. But I do think that the projection could be at guard if all else fails. We're here. Number 33. We got through already the ad. We already got through the first round. And I ended up actually promoting the Patreon for once. So we are here. And New York Giants, again, Arch Manning not considered in this. We ended up getting that extra second round pick. Got Spencer Fano. I think this is turning out actually pretty well. You can look in the corner realm right here because, again, you ended up going into free agency, trying to patch it up. And if you're sitting there at number 1, I can almost guarantee you that the cornerback situation is not as pretty as what you think. I'm looking at Domani Jackson as a primary asset here, as well as A.J. Harris. A.J. Harris, I do not have him as high as number 6. I mean, looking at where he's at on my board, and my next best cornerback, Preston Hodges, defensive back to me. I don't really necessarily consider him a boundary. Look at Davison Igbinosun. I think that Davison will be selected in probably the second round here. I hope he ends up not grabbing as much. It's one of his biggest issues, but we'll see. I mean, right now, if you talk about the Philadelphia Eagles keeping the NFC East, like one of the bigger issues with Jacorian is how grabby he is. So maybe a potential comp there for Davison Igbinosun. But my next best cornerback is Jontez Williams. I don't think the New York Giants defense necessarily reflects the skill set that Jontez is going to provide. Also, potentially someone who should go into the slot, which doesn't make sense. DJ Harvey and D'Angelo Pons, both at 5'8" or shorter. Not going to happen. Just going to be real. I think DJ Harvey is at least like under 180 pounds. I'm forgetting if he is in the height category. Not that great. But, DJ Harvey transferred from San Jose State to USC. Excited to see him this year. But the next best cornerback for me, based on the proper build, is going to be Domani Jackson. So I'm a really big fan of that. Honestly, he's a good player. And the last time you drafted a USC cornerback pretty high, it's unfortunate that he's kind of ass now, speaking of the Eagles as well. But, Dory ended up having some moments there where you had some faith in him. I'm going to go with Domani Jackson because also he's done a fantastic job rebounding and growing even in tumultuous times at Bama and looked great over at USC. But let's go at pick number 34. There we go. With the Cleveland Browns. And we've taken Cade Klubnik. We've taken Caleb Tiernan at this point. I think it's a good foundation to have. We need to focus on the defense. And there's 2 positions I want to look at, and that's going to be edge rusher as well as cornerback. That edge 2 position, we'll see if the love of my life a couple years ago ends up actually working out there. Obviously, you guys know that, Missouri edge rusher, why am I forgetting his name all of a sudden? Son of a bitch. But Isaiah McGuire, I was about to say it, and I'm like, fuck, I need to team myself up on this. Isaiah McGuire, he's right now kind of like right there in that rotation, supposed to be getting a lot more reps and has done actually a pretty good job. I think that he could end up making me not want to go after an edge rusher this high, like maybe at 66 we can talk about it, but I still think it's definitely worth taking a peek. And you look at guys like Kenyatta Jackson, who I think will take a huge step up this year. Max Llewellyn is a little bit of a different build. He's a bit smaller, but still plays very large. Someone that I like a lot. Not for this team. Same thing with Anto Saka. But I'm looking at Mateo Uiagalelei. I personally think there's going to be an option there for us in round 3 to where I feel comfortable. And with the quality of edge rushers that they continue making it work with, I'm going to look at the cornerback situation because, there's a lot potentially shifting in this cornerback room over the next year or two. And it's important for us to make sure that we at least stay above water. And my next best corner that can end up fitting, I mean, I think AJ Harris can play in the slot if he needs to. I want him more on the boundary, but I don't know what's up with that. PFF, I hope they end up fixing it, because it does end up sometimes appearing on the premium stats where you can't tell the height. It's just data issues. I'm sure they're trying to do something on the back end, and that's just unfortunately what happens. I wish they would do it earlier in the summer, not when college football is starting, but I digress. I'm going to go after AJ Harris here. I think it's a super high floor corner, good both in man as well as zone, has some press skills as well. Obviously, Penn State used to the cold, so you're not necessarily worried about, a SoCal kid or a Florida kid who's never been hit in like 30-degree weather, having a little bit more of a tough time in the elements. This is someone who's he's built for tough, essentially, and it's somebody who you'll want on the boundary for sure. At number 35 for the Tennessee Titans, we have drafted Caleb Downs in round number 1. Here in round number 2, I do want to shift my focus to something a little bit more reliable in the wide receiver core. Now, the guy who I'm looking at right now is Chris Bell. He is my wide receiver 2. He's tied pretty much with Mekhi Lemon. Now, Chris Bell, his biggest issue to me is the consistency, or like, I don't like the fact that he doesn't do a lot of route fakes. I think he runs routes beautifully, but when it comes to I think he runs routes so well that he can generate separation without getting into the head of the defender. The best players are the ones who always keep DBs on their toes, and I really want him to develop that part of the game. On top of that, I do think he takes some reps off, but like when he's on, changes direction just on a dime. I think that he is dynamic with the ball in his hands. I think he's a superstar, 6'2", 220 as well. I mean, I think he is going to be a little closer to the 6-foot range. I do think it's a little bit over exaggerated. We will see in person. So shout out to SMU for allowing me to be able to have the opportunity to see him on November 20th, maybe 22nd. Who cares? That week, we're going to see Chris Bell live, and I'm so excited for that. But to me, it's Chris Bell, and then you can end up talking about some other guys like Antonio Williams, Mekhi Lemon here. I'm going to go after the player who could be 6'2", 220 pounds here in Chris Bell. Good wide receiver class for depth. I think Chris Bell is one of those dark horses. Shout out to Dane Brugler, because I believe, was it Dane? I think it might be Dane who ended up saying Chris Bell is his wide receiver too. But at number 36, we have the New York Giants again. And I'm thinking potentially of moving back here. We got Domani Jackson, Spencer Fano. Like, I feel very comfortable with how we're like developing this roster right now. Areas where I might want to improve, if you can see a proper safety, that might be a good spot to go. You talk about Zaquee Wheatley, Kamari Ramsey. I mean, I think those are some good players. Robert Spears Jennings. I know Isaiah would be someone I'd probably look at in like the 4th round. Same thing with Keon Saab. Saab might be taken in this, but personally, I might want to move out of here for a team that's looking for a high-end pass rusher or a high-end wide receiver, because Mekhi Lemon I still have as a top 20 player. Also, shout out to Noah Thomas. That would also be another name I'd toss in, but I also do think Noah Thomas is not going to have a great year. I'm surprised he's not listed on here. So we'll have to, unfortunately, do, as you guys know, the placeholder, but definitely somebody who I don't think is going to have a great year there at Georgia, mainly because of the quarterback situation. But that being said, I do think this is a prime opportunity for a team trying to maybe jump the Saints, a team that is letting go of top tier pass rush help. Obviously, they're just in a pretty tough situation, but that's where my headset, or like my mindset's going to be for the Saints. They've gone after their quarterback. I think they need to go after some either firepower or after some good defensive front help, and they could use it. So I'm going to look at some teams trying to jump them. We've already addressed that both with the Raiders as well as the Panthers, respectively, defensive interior and edge rusher. The Cowboys have already addressed defensive interior and edge through Kenny Clark and Ruben Bain. I will say, I actually might not be able to get someone to bite on the edge room. Is there anybody who needs some wide receiver help? Honestly, no. So we're going to leave it as is. I think the Giants are going to strike out here, and they're going to have to go and draft 2 players. Wah. Like, first world problems, right? Who gives a shit? But we've already addressed the right tackle and cornerback spot. I think those are the most dire. Now, you could look at linebacker right now, and honestly, it's not a bad idea. You got someone who is high ceiling here in Anthony Hill. You're probably playing against Jahad Campbell, knock on wood, for the majority of the year. hopefully the whole year. Hopefully he can stay healthy. Obviously came into the year with some injury conditions. So I'm actually going to go Anthony Hill Jr. here. You're going to go after the highest tier players. A lot of people believe in him as a pure first rounder. I have him a little bit more situated in that like, day two territory, but the ceiling is absolutely there with Anthony Hill. I mean, IQ definitely pops up. One of those players who's certainly someone who you love the pursuit angles. Like he just knows how to, be in the right spot at the right time. And so I hope that he continues developing, and that's what you need. You need to continue getting captains of whether it's the offense or the defense. You need to be able to continue enforcing it on both sides. At number 37 for the New Orleans Saints, I was talking about going after edge for him. We're going after QB with Garrett Nussmeier, and I think that's super duper critical. Now, here at this point, you can talk about Mateo Uyunglele. I do know that Ricky definitely likes his measurables, and so Mateo does kind of feel a little bit more up his alley than someone like Max Llewellyn and Toe Saka. I got to double check on Saka. I'm pretty sure he's undersized. Yeah, he's 255. Not undersized, but, not the biggest guy on earth. Mateo, isn't he like 260? Okay, he's in the 270s now. Holy shit. So, yeah, a little bit more up the alley of what you guys are looking for. Unfortunately, I really wish they had more guys here, and I love they're starting to put some dudes in like Will Held, Prince Will Umamielen. But there is someone who I think deserves a lot of love in this equation. Not at this pick, but Samuel Okunlola from Colorado. Fucking monster. You guys gotta watch him. And then of course, my Pookie Bear, Malachi Lawrence. You guys know what I feel about him. He is fantastic as well. Again, not for the New Orleans Saints. I do think Mateo Uyunglele is going to get the nod here. Not necessarily the most productive. Unfortunately, the Saints have a pretty shitty track record in the second round based on, letting go Isaiah Foskey and stuff. But Mateo is more polished than Foskey. Almost the exact opposite of when you guys got Foskey. Foskey ended up having a lot of issues when it came to, the polish of the game. And he was just someone who's a really good athlete, has a lot of potential. Mateo's almost the exact opposite, where I hope he kind of slims down a little bit, gets a bit more explosive, because the technique is 100% there. And that's something that you really do want. You want somebody who has the timing down, has the technique, and then just needs to learn when and where to apply it. And that's exactly what he has. And this is going to be someone that I think can continue to grow and develop as time goes on. And I do think if you thrust him into the starting lineup early, I don't think you're going to regret it. I just think there might be a little bit more of a growth curve than expected, which, talk about the Saints. I mean, that's kind of just on brand with the Saints, and especially their identity right now. At number 38 for the Panthers, we went after Peter Woods at number 6. Just continue developing the interior. I know there's Tershawn Wharton there, obviously Derek Brown, but you just can never get too much firepower on the defensive interior. Now, I do think defensive back could be in the mix. I do think a boundary corner too should also be considered here. And this is where I'm looking at someone like DJ McKinney, 6'2". Here's the problem. He dropped 10 pounds. I need to see him, and he's playing tonight. Need to see him in action for me to feel comfortable trying to take him in this range. Guys I would consider is Davison Igbinosun, although I don't think he has the mirror ability that everyone loved about JC Horn at the rate that he does. And again, the grabbiness, I do worry a little bit. So it is a bit of a weird spot right now. Keith Abney might be the next guy I go after, but the Panthers are in a good spot because you have some flexibility. You don't have to try to target corner here, because linebacker is wide open. And you got Deontay Lawson here, who I think is just so high floor, but Whit Weeks is just a monster. The problem is he's a bit undersized, but he plays with the ferocity, not of somebody who weighs 225 pounds. He plays like he's 235, 240. Not necessarily as powerful, but he has the motor, the grit, and then he plays the run very well. So I'm going to give some love to Whit Weeks here. He's my linebacker 2. There's one player who I like more than him. Wow, that's what linebacker 2 means. But I have not taken yet, but he is lighter, and I don't think he plays with the physicality that Whit Weeks does. So I think Whit Weeks would end up being the linebacker that I would take over him if I'm trying to be something a little bit more realistic. Number 39 for the Las Vegas Raiders. It's funny. Someone ended up mentioning that there's a connection to Jeremiah Smith, and this might be a deliberate tank. I also wanted to mention, even though I think Gino is like his uncle or something, but Chip Kelly is the offensive coordinator. like let's just be real. Like Jeremiah Smith, Obviously you think about it. I'm not saying Chip Kelly was his OC because he wasn't, but you see the Ohio State connection. There's still that connection there. So it's something that's kind of cool. However, looking at what the Raiders would end up having to go after, they're at number 7 overall. Like you would think they'd develop a quarterback at this point, like Sam Levitt. And I think this is a good range for you to do that. Aiden Childs is the guy who I really, really like. Again, I'm trying to blend my feelings with, what is a little bit more approachable, a little bit more realistic. And I don't feel very threatened by any team, maybe except Seattle, who would want to try to develop another QB, but you're already kind of admitting that you're going to try to see if Jalen Milroe can make it work. Since we ended up passing on Drew Aller earlier in the draft, it wouldn't make sense to go after one in round 2. I would say might want to just hold off on that QB situation. I feel like wide receiver is good, tight end obviously amazing. Running back situation, Ashton Genty is going to be king. Like you could try to upgrade at the offensive line position, but I am just going to be real. Tackle position is not good, and I think you have a lot of guys who can end up working out on the interior. The area where you need some help as well is that defensive back room, which it sucks the fact that I'm siphoning off all the top end corner talent, but I will say, I know that, I think Dave Igbenogson is the next best corner. The guy ends up having some penalties, but when he is on, he is on. He is unbeatable. And I think Pete Carroll would love that. I mean, Richard Sherman wasn't the softest handed dude. I mean, he's a physical motherfucker, right? So I think that Dave Igbenogson has a really good chance of working here. So we're going to go after Dave Igbenogson. I'm going to trust my eyes and go after a player I really, really like. At number 40 for the Indianapolis Colts, we go Fernando Mendoza in the first. I'm betting on the success. I really like how he handles pressure, but there are some people who definitely have their reservations on him. I'm just hoping that all ends up working out. The wide receiver core looks amazing. Tight end core, I mean, obviously you ended up trying to fix that there in the first this past year, and it's looking like it's going to be great. Right tackle situation, highlighted it with the Raiders. Not necessarily something I want to explore at the moment. So where can we end up improving for the Colts? Now, linebacker's possible, but I do think defensive interior is that next position. And shout out to PFF again for adding guys like Big Dom Orange and CJ Fight. I love CJ Fight. I've seen no one talk about him. And shout out to his dad. His dad DMs me every time there's a promo tweet. So I love that. And CJ Fight is a very good player. I don't have him at 51 on my board. I do not have him officially graded, but I watch all my interior offensive linemen versus him because I do think that he is an NFL caliber interior defensive lineman. Tim Keenan had the ankle surgery. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks. The area where I think the Colts should be going after is, this range. And I think I love Brandon Cleveland. 6'4", 315. The dude is just an absolute monster. And I think he's actually a good fit there for Lou. I mean, has a good size to him, again, that 315 range, but I do think he likes his plugs a little bit. And Dom Orange, I love Dom Orange, man. 6'4", 325, adds an extra 10 pounds. We're going to show some love to him. Again, Iowa State, so right down the road, scouts are going to get a lot of eyes on this guy. I mean, you could have seen it last year versus, I'm not going to say the name. He transferred to Texas A&M this year, but there's 2 interior defensive linemen from Iowa State last year. It was clear how much better Dom Orange was than the latter. So at number 41, we have the Dallas Cowboys again, and got Caden Proctor and Ruben Bain. I'm not going to lie. It's not impossible for Dak to be gone and go after someone like Sam Levitt here and just really tear the fucking building down. I wouldn't be against that. Just personally, would not be against that. I don't think that's going to happen, but I would not be against it. So areas where they can improve, I do think that wide receiver 3 spot is something they can continue to grow and develop. Again, they're trying to develop that left tackle position. They're going to start Caden Proctor there, move Tyler Guyton to right. The interior of the offensive line looks amazing. Running back is possible here, but I will say, Damon Claiborne's available. Damon Claiborne is someone who I definitely am considering here, but I do love Mekhi Lemon, and I do think that he complements what CeeDee Lamb does because both of them are flexible in the slot as well as the boundary, as well as George Pickens so well. Of course, George might not even be on the team, which would make me feel even more comfortable with someone who is very, very reliable, like Mekhi Lemon being on the squad. Honestly, sometimes you just got to go best player available. I love the running back room potentially with Damon Claiborne, but Mekhi Lemon is a top 20 player to me. I got to go take my shot when I can. At number 42 for the Jacksonville Jaguars, we have taken nothing because they sent their first round pick to move up for Travis Hunter, who's supposed to play more of a wide receiver role. I'm excited to see whether that's going to be the case. I thought he was a better corner than wide receiver, but if he's not the number one guy that everyone's keeping their eyes on, i.e., Brian Thomas Jr., then I really do think there's a good chance where he can end up being a very, very good player. That being said, they still could go after corner here. I don't think the class is good enough for that. So let's look at maybe some other positions. One of them being interior offensive linemen. And there's a lot of very good players in this group, a lot of very good players. Like Davion Carter could move to center. He's just 6 foot, sub 300, probably not getting taken until day 3. Charles Jagasaw is an absolute beast. But the guy I'm looking at right now is Connor Lew. Really good movement skills. Obviously, Auburn, pretty damn close to Jacksonville. Like, you're also talking about someone who's used to that type of climate. Not that big of a deal. You can talk about Jake Slaughter in that realm as well, but I think Connor Lew is 10 times the player of Jake Slaughter. Hot take. I love Lyndon Cooper out of Pittsburgh, but I do think Connor Lew will be taken first, and this is a good range for him to go. Where did I end up putting Lew? I'm trying to remember where. Brailsford's at 54 for me. Where's my boy Lew? Lew's at 83. I do think Lew needs to work on the consistency a little bit. Now, again, I love Parker Brailsford. I just feel like Lew will end up having a higher weight and make offenses or NFL teams more comfortable with him. And he's just a good player. So if you guys want to go after the other option, by all means. But at number 43, we have the Seahawks, LT Overton with that first pick. And again, we end up picking up an extra 3rd round pick that's going to be used in this episode. So really good to see the state of the Seahawks. I do think you could try to evaluate that right tackle position. God, it's just so ugly. I mean, Chaplin, you'd have to really, really be banking on him. Caden Green looked ass at tackle. There's Gooseby here, but I really think he needs to grow a lot. So I'm very uncomfortable with the upgrade at right tackle because, of course, you don't want to have to pay both of your offensive tackles, but you just might have to. Jagasaw is really fun in the interior realm. It's a weird spot to be in. I got to admit, this is another spot where I might feel comfortable moving back. If I'm being real, if you can get rid of Kenneth Walker, obviously you trade him and you get really good value. We love Kenneth Walker. But if you can combine Damon Claiborne's home run hitting ability with Zach Charbonnet's down-to-down, ground-and-pound vibe, I think you have yourself set up for an amazing dynamic duo that is, again, not having to pay you're not having to pay top dollar there. So I really do like the potential there as well. Wide receiver, I think we need to get more speed, though. This team needs some speed. Got that need for speed, baby. I'm looking at a lot of these receivers. There's some great ones. Eric Rivers, Eric Singleton. If you want to take the cheaper route, go that route. But we lost DK. Nick Harbor has to be at least considered here. I could have talked about him for the Cowboys, but, Nick Harbor, he's a little bit more underdeveloped. I don't think he's going to have the opportunities in that offense because of how many clear out routes he does. But I think this is where in that early to mid second, you continue taking superstar athletes. And last year they took a superstar athlete out of South Carolina in the second, and Nick Eamon-Worry. So Nick Harbor going to be the next Nick from South Carolina, drafted in round number 2 to Seattle. Number 44 for the New England Patriots took Jordan Tyson in round number 1. I like what they're doing with their edge core right now, but at this point, Caleb Von Chason going to be up for a contract. Braden Swinson, obviously it's a shitty situation. The one thing I hate about what we do here, which is, I watch for my own pleasure and then end up talking with you guys about it. I don't know about all the personality concerns. I don't know about the medical red flags. And I wish I could communicate that with you. And I keep my ears open and my eyes open trying to figure that out from guys who do know. But that was one where hearing, I remember Braden before the show was talking to me about that incident at Oregon. And it's okay, that's interesting. Didn't really think much of it. But, obviously there were some things that happened during / after the episode that I felt a little queasy about. And I was I just think I'm overthinking it. Similar to what I was talking about with James Pierce Jr. Hopefully I'm wrong about that as well. But, unfortunately, it should just swap the two, and it ends up, Swinson falling much more than a 59 pressure edge rusher in the SEC should have. And then obviously, it looks like something might have transpired. I know the production wasn't there in the preseason or during camp, but attitude translates in the NFL a lot more than what people want to say. And I do think, well, especially with Vrabel, it's a no nonsense policy. And the fact that he wasn't claimed makes me feel like there's also some concerns there. So all that being said, this is not a like shade session at all. Obviously, also I'm a little bit salty at randomly Swinson unfollowing me after he got drafted. It's kind of weird, but it is what it is. I do think the Patriots are in a position to go after another edge rusher. And the one that I really like for him is Max Llewellyn. Again, he's going to be more of a later breakout guy, but I mean, he ended up breaking out last year, just more limited tape. And he is just such a talented player. For me, he's been number 36 player in the class. I think he's just a polished player all around. Maybe not the best measurable guy, but just a really gritty player. And I mean, think about it. Does that not scream Vrabel to you? Max Llewellyn is Vrabel in my eyes, and I really, really love that. At 45 for the Falcons, we'll see what happens with Kyle Pitts. This could be an area where you go after Max Clare, who's a top-tier tight end. Now, you could also look at another weapon as well outside of the tight end position, but this is a spot where you could look at it. Again, they haven't had their first pick because they used that to get James Pierce Jr. in a trade-up last year. But I'm looking at Max Clare here, who is a very, very solid tight end, who is someone that you could feel very comfortable with. That being said, you got guys like JMG here, John Michael Gillenberg, Miles Kitzelman, Justin Jolly. I don't think he's actually listed here either, but Traore from Mississippi State. I love them all. I think those guys definitely deserve some love. Probably would be available here at 77. So, we'll still keep Max Clare in our back pocket, but let's look at maybe some other positions. Edge rusher, they've invested so much into. I do think defensive interior needs some help still. And looking at some players here, Dante Corleone had a good day versus Nebraska. There's one play where he ended up pretty much backing the guard into the quarterback. I just want people to start looking more at the offensive lineman because I'm just going to be honest. Good on Dante for taking advantage of him. Again, Dante did what he should have done. But it was not Dante who caused it was not his play that ended up, taking advantage of a great offensive lineman and ended up being a fantastic play. No, the offensive lineman made a huge mistake when it came to his lower body. Like his feet were straight together, no anchor. Hate to say it. That's not happening in the NFL. So Dante could end up doing that versus them, but I think people are focusing too much on the play by Dante and not enough the other way around. But looking at players like Tim Keenan, again, we've got to see how the medicals check out with him. But Brandon Cleveland's a guy who I'm looking at right now. Obviously, North Carolina, pretty damn close to Atlanta there, but, ended up having some, he ended up playing. Cool for him. I forgot that NC State played, but someone who I really, really like. And last year, obviously, had some pretty good stuff. Only one pressure this past game on 21 pass rushing snaps. Not a huge fan of that. We'll see what happens there. We'll see why. But I think Brandon Cleveland's a fantastic player, and he rose up in the biggest moments. It's week 1. You're still feeling it out. I want to see how he is in midseason form. We're going to go after Brandon Cleveland. Number 46 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, moved up to select Drew Aller. Again, we still have 2 third-round picks. I feel very happy with how that ended up turning out. I do think a boundary defensive back would not be a bad idea at this point. The problem is I don't feel very comfortable with the defensive backs available. Maybe Abney would be someone who I'd consider here. See, I think he's 6'2", 190, but some people say he might be a little bit shorter than that. It would be a good spot to potentially take a swing on a player like that. Our defensive interior room looks pretty good right now. Edge rusher, we have it pretty much locked up. Safety is where you might try to get someone who's going to be a little more bulky, but again, I think that's a round 3 issue. Like defense kind of feels solidified outside of that boundary corner position. The one area where I might want to upgrade is that tackle spot. And are there any tackles I feel comfortable with? Xavier Chaplin is going to be one of those guys who's a lot more reliable in terms of being a full-time, just really, really solid pass blocker. That's probably where I'm going to end up going. Again, looking at my next best tackle on my board. It's Alex Harkey out of Oregon, but that's a right tackle spot. And I do think they're going to try everything they can to make sure. Ooh, Jagasaw would be fun. Jagasaw is actually someone who I have a lot of faith in. He had his first, Charles Jagasaw here out of Notre Dame. First game at tackle was in the Natty. And he lost some reps, but he lost way better than somebody like he was designed. He was set up to fail that game, and he failed much better than what he should have. I have a lot of faith in Charles Jagasaw here. He did play some reps at guard, but he also ended up playing the national championship at left tackle, 6'7", 333. I really have a lot of faith in him. Again, you have that flexibility to put him at guard if you need to, but I mean, I just want to go after someone who's super high ceiling. Kind of forgot about him in the mix. At 47 for the Miami Dolphins, we actually went after defensive back Dylan Thieneman in round number 1. I feel very happy with that. Here in round 2, we got to prepare for the departure of Tyreek Hill. And I'm looking at Antonio Williams here, who is a dynamic, full, well-rounded receiver. Only issue last year, his drops randomly popped up to be a little bit more of an issue. I'm hoping that ends up changing this year when he wins the Natty. At number 48, we have the Chicago Bears, when Jeremiah Love in round 1. Defensive interior is the spot where I'm going to be looking at for a pick here. And you got Zane Durant. I really would love that. I'm trying to see if we can get a little bit more beef. And looking at the guys who are at least on here, because I do have somebody that I think I'm going to use. I'm going to deploy a little bit of a placeholder right now because I do love a couple of these players a lot more than what people are giving them credit for. One of them is Caden McDonald from Ohio State. Really annoyed that he's not on here because it's a big school, the big player. Bryson Eason out of Tennessee is another one, former linebacker. Dude's a freak athlete as well. But the guy I'm looking at right now is Cole Brevard, an absolute space eater, but someone who can end up working in an even and odd front based on his technique and mobility. I really love how he's going to fit there for Texas. So I'm going to end up using a placeholder here. And I love Xavier Harris. He's a fun college defensive interior. Will have no chance of being drafted for the first 2 rounds, at least for this mock draft. But this is going to be Cole Brevard, number 42 on my board, defensive interior / nose tackle out of Texas. Definitely think edge rusher, defensive interior need to be the next focused positions. At number 49, we have the Arizona Cardinals, safety as well. But I'm not deep enough into safety, and everyone I know hasn't really been super hyped up about the safety class. So that's why I'm like a little bit more hesitant. But at number 49 for the Cardinals, we went after right tackle with Caleb Lamu. I know he's a left, but I just was saying best player available, move him to right, and just pray. But I do think this team still needs to continue developing both in the linebacking core. It's a dark horse position. Like Kyle Lewis, I love how he just approaches the game. He flies around. He can play any position. He can play the star. He can even have reps at Mike, Sam, Will. I love the flexibility there. He will end up being a top 32 player for me, but we'll see about whether that's the right move. I do think wide receiver is another sneaky position. You got contract potentially coming up there at that number 2 spot. You got someone like Chase Roberts, who I could end up seeing being a really good option in round 3. Malachi Fields, I love him. I mean, I really love him. He's not going to have the chance to shine, in my opinion. That Notre Dame receiving core is unbelievable. But you also look, I think their cornerback situation's looking great. Defensive interior, they've really invested in it. Edge is not a bad spot to go after someone who's more of a pure DPR. And unfortunately, you look at guys like Thomas. I don't think that he really has lived up to the hype the way maybe I was hoping he would. And so I'm looking at someone like R. Mason Thomas, who has freakish ability and needs to just rein it in. Joshua Josephs as well. But R. Mason Thomas, he kind of disappears from time to time. And I think that's perfect for the Cardinals to invest in the upside of R. Mason Thomas more than, just kind of sitting and, just kind of taking what you can get. So I'm going to go with R. Mason Thomas there at number 49. Samuel Okunlola was the other one I was considering there out of Colorado, but I do think R. Mason Thomas will have a little bit more hype. Minnesota Vikings round 1 took Avion Terrell. I think here, like a sneaky one is Max Clare. Their receiving core definitely needs some help. So, you could look at the tight end room if you don't feel very comfortable for the long haul. But I am looking at guys like Eric Singleton to bring an explosiveness to the NFC North that I don't really know if Jordan Addison is going to be on his way out. Eric Singleton's going to be an excellent option just to provide that explosiveness. But I also want to look at Jeremy Bernard here, who is viewed by many to just be one of the highest floor wide receiver 3s. That at 50, you're like, that doesn't sound very exciting. But after the catch, I think this guy is super reliable. He's just a damn good receiver. Like, do you want the excitement or do you want the security? And I do think we've been just playing ring around the rosy and just, praying that the wide receiver 3 spot is filled with somebody that can like play well enough, whether it's like KJ Osborne, obviously, not the recent situation. Thielen's coming in as well this most recent year. But I mean, we're talking about Jeremy Bernard here, and I think the security in providing that after the catch threat is going to be really helpful to JJ there. So we're going to go after Jeremy Bernard at number 50 after going Avion Terrell in the first. At number 51 for the Denver Broncos, again, could have went after a nose guard, but at the same time, I think that we could end up looking at round 3. Maybe at someone like James Smith who can end up fitting, or excuse me, Tim Keenan who could fill that role. Number 51 for the Denver Broncos, another team that could be looking at some beef on the inside. And I think Zane Durant is going to be right up the alley of Sean Payton. We took Kenyon Sadiq in round 1, but Zane Durant has a ceiling that is pretty much unmatched by any other player due to the level of athleticism that Zane brings. Problem is he's sub 300, but he has crazy power to him. In a straight line, he can end up bull rushing a guard into the quarterback. There's definitely going to be some real excitement about the ceiling of Zane Durant. And especially with defensive interior contracts shooting up as well, I think this is a prime opportunity to go after someone who could be truly special. And Quay Robinson's selection this past year kind of showed like how much value you can put in a pure athlete. And of course, it was, to y'all. Number 52, Houston Texans. We went after one of my favorite players in the draft, Christian Miller, in the first. Could go back to Ohio State to go after another tight end here in Max Clare, excuse me. I think that would be really fun. Honestly, not a bad idea. However, I am going to look at the interior of the offensive line and continue to develop it. And this team loves physicality. Parker Brailsford is going to be the guy I select. He's sub 300, but he played very well at 275 at Washington, added 15 pounds. I think he's one of the best players in the whole entire country. Like at the center position, not many guys have the core strength that he does. And you might say core strength, like what are we talking about here? This is football. He's a former wrestler. I think he was a former wrestling champion. And you could see it. When guys engage with him, he is not being knocked out of position. And he is also manhandling dudes like he's 330 pounds. I think that's great. And so I love the ability, the versatility as well. I think he can end up playing guard if you need him to. But this is somebody who really needs to have a shot at a damn good team. And I want to send him there to the Texans. And number 53 for the Green Bay Packers might be the Super Bowl champions. We never know. But obviously did not have a first round pick. That went from Micah Parsons. It's a great time to be a Green Bay Packers fan. But we're going to look at that corner position and just get after some solid players. I know a lot of people believe in the resurgence of Malik Muhammad. Fingers crossed. Like really, fingers crossed. I don't have a ton of faith there, but like looking at the next corner that has proper size, Jontez Williams actually is someone who I really do think could be a good fit on this squad. He has enough physicality. He has enough speed. Somebody who I think could end up being slotted anywhere. So is Jontez in here? Let's see. Jon. Oh, PFF, man. How do you, he has like a 90 plus grade. How do you not watch him? We're going to have to do a placeholder. It sucks, but it is what it is. We'll go down here and go Antonio Kite. Out of Mississippi, formerly Auburn. He's going to be the placeholder there for my number 47 player, Jontez Williams out of Iowa State. Number 54 for the Buccaneers. First pick was David Bailey. I just love that pick. So reliable. We're going Max Clare here in a heartbeat. I mean, talk about a perfect replacement for Cade Otton. And I know there was some interview that was, I believe, this offseason where he's saying hey, I want to be back here, but it doesn't feel like the feeling is that mutual. Well, Max Clare is going to make sure that feeling is very well communicated. But at number 55, we have the Los Angeles Chargers. Keldrick Falk, their first round pick, definitely where they needed to look. This is another team that could be looking to replace Poona Ford. Now, you got Jamari Caldwell on there. I think there's certainly that opportunity, which you can end up enjoying. But Justin Jolly, Max Kitzelman, those are the guys who I'm looking at right now for them to add to their receiving room. Kitzelman's a bit older. That's his problem. But Kitzelman is just ridiculously solid as a blocker, which I don't see the Chargers really having there. You can end up comboing Kitzelman and Gadsden, and I think that would end up working very, very well. Now, is there anybody that people need to move up for? I don't think so. And I mean, based on my board, the next best available player, Malachi Lawrence, we're going to skip him again. One of those players that I just really love. And same thing with Lyndon Cooper. Who's the next player that a lot of people like? It's Damon Claiborne. And Like DeMond, I don't think he's going to get moved up for. Kobe Baines, love him. He's going to be drafted in this, but I don't think it's available right now. Like Lee Hunter, you got some defensive interior talent, but again, we're not really in that position. So, like, we're looking at maybe a couple edge rushers and not many teams that I think threaten that realm. So, we're not going to have a lot of people saying, hey, we want to move up with you, Los Angeles. So, let's end up selecting some for him. I also think center could be a good option. I was talking about it, like talking about the other positions, but honestly, this is the spot where I really want to throw my special twist here. And Logan Jones is fun. I think he can end up working for the Chargers, but Lyndon Cooper out of Pittsburgh center is going to be where I'm going to go. And we're going to use Pettibon as the placeholder. Again, PFF does not have Lyndon Cooper, but watch the game of Lyndon versus, again, like this is a 1-game sample size for Lyndon for you to watch, but versus someone who we literally took at number 6 overall. Like Peter Woods is an absolute savage, and Lyndon Cooper held his own and did really well, more than any other center that I saw versus Peter Woods. I think that he's the dark horse of this class that will pop up out of nowhere. So at number 55, we are going after my number 13 player, Lyndon Cooper, center out of Pittsburgh. So super excited about him. Again, you have to use a placeholder because PFF. Pick number 56 for the Houston Texans. We already taken Christian Miller and Parker Brailsford. And again, I just don't see many players that teams are going to get excited to move up for. So, we've addressed offensive line. We've also addressed, defensive interior. I don't think there's many other positions this team is desperate for outside of running back. And we talked about him earlier. We got DeMonte Claiborne here out of Wake Forest, my RB1 in the class, because I ended up thinking a lot more about how much 5'7" really impacts my opinion of one of my favorite players in the entire draft, and Jaheim White. But Jamon Claiborne doesn't have that issue. He's 5'10", and he is really, really good. So we're going to go after DeMond Claiborne here out of Wake Forest. And number 57 for the Bengals, another team that could be looking at running back here. But so far we went Mansour Delane, boundary corner out of LSU. I feel very comfortable continuing to develop on the defensive front. And, you look at Gabe Akis here. He fits the build for him. But someone who I want to continue growing and developing in, because I know this organization loves measurables, is Kenyatta Jackson. I just don't know if I truly believe in my Pookie Bear Miles Murphy breaking out the way he should. And I can guarantee you they're not going to feel very comfortable with their true edge one being somebody in Shamar Stewart who is still growing and developing. So I'm going to go after Kenyatta Jackson here out of The Ohio State University. It's worked for him before. We're going to see if it ends up working for him again. Big fan of Kenyatta Jackson. He's big. He's powerful. It's his first year starting. We'll see if he ends up living up to the potential. For the Rams at 58, we've gone after our quarterback for the future and starting right tackle. We're going to move Isaiah World there. He has some experience from Nevada at right tackle, but not in the past couple years, unfortunately. But at least you have some type of training that he's had there based on what people have told me. But at number 58, again, World Mateer. Good spot to be in. Let's look at the defensive side because I've neglected corner for him. This is where you could end up seeing someone like Malik Muhammad. I think it's realistic for him to go in this range, even though I'm not a big fan of him. DJ McKinney as well, but I don't know if he brings the physicality. So we're going to go Malik Muhammad here out of Texas. He's up to 190. I think, is he higher than that? Okay, no, he's 188. But, somebody who brings a lot of physicality to a team that really enjoys physicality at the corner position. Detroit Lions went Denis Dennis Sutton there in the first. Here in the second, you could talk about another weapon. It just depends. Like, I hope J-Mo gets paid. But if you want to go after a deep threat, I've talked about him several times. Eric Singleton could be your burner. Like, I really do think you could try to invest that way. But this is another team that needs to invest in the center position. And you're looking at it. I think Iapani Laulu is going to be someone that you're going to really eyeball, and it's going to be like, damn, how many centers are going to go? But, this guy is a plug. He's also 6'2", 330, someone who's going to have a lot of experience there at Oregon, and I really want his anchor to improve, and he has the build for it. I think it's more of a technique thing, and this is the team where I believe it's a lot of young guys in the interior, but one that you can end up seeing him really thrive in. At number 60 for the San Francisco 49ers went McFrancis Cece Mauigoa in the first. Defensive back might be my next move. And, you're looking at someone like Kamari Ramsey here, right there in California, could end up being the guy you end up really liking. Big fan of Bud Clark as well. But yeah, I mean, personally, I think Kamari Ramsey going to be worth it at this point. Last time he went to USC for a defensive back, ended up working out for the meantime, and so we're going to do it again. Kamari Ramsey going to the San Francisco 49ers. 61 for the Chiefs. Went Jermod McCoy via trade up in the first. Here in the second, I think this is where we could start looking at another edge rusher. You look at Gabe Akis. I do think you might end up with Trey Hendrickson as well, but this is a team that does not stop when they end up trying to throw things at a wall and see if it sticks. They continue throwing things at the wall. Guard is a position I do think we can end up trying to target here. And honestly, I think it's a little bit more realistic if I'm talking about Hendrickson probably being on the squad. There's someone who is not listed here, so you heard it. You heard it here first. We are using a placeholder, but it is actually someone who's in my top 30. It's Kobe Baines, a guard out of Kansas. A lot of eyes, obviously, coming from Kansas City, Missouri. You're going to see a lot of Kobe Baines out of Kansas. These are just rock-solid players, super high floor, someone who I have a lot of love for. My number 3 interior offensive lineman in the class. We're going to use Roderick Kearney as somebody who is a placeholder, but again, my number 23 player, Kobe Baines out of Kansas. Really reliable guard. I can move him over to left and feel very comfortable with it. So keep the offensive line cheap on the interior. I do know that there is the chance that you can end up, why am I forgetting Penn State center's name? Hunter Norzad. Could end up seeing him try to take a step up and, be that starting guard for the future. But I do think that you can end up looking that way as well. 62 for the Eagles. We do need to look at tight end, and I'm looking at Justin Jolly, Miles Kitzelman. Jolly's continued to put on weight, so he's up to, what? That's some bullshit. Ain't no way Jolly's 263. There's no way. I mean, this dude's flying at 255. He's definitely going to be on the radar for a lot of teams, but I'm actually going to go with Miles Kitzelman here. He's 255, a little bit more of an Eagles tight end build, not than Justin Hawley, but then some of the players like Eli Stowers that people like to put to Philly. Here's the thing about Kitzelman. Great blocker. And that's going to be a foundation for an Eagles tight end at this point. Really good receiver, also a very good blocker. He is where is he at? Where the hell do I have this guy at? Number 33 overall on my board. He's number 32. What the hell's up with my numbers? Unbelievable. You guys see that? 30, 31, 33. Unbelievable. 32 randomly disappeared. But I'm going to scroll up so you guys can't see that. At number 63, we have the Ravens. And went after guard Tomas Rimac. That is how he pronounces it. Shout out to Virginia Tech for having the pronunciations on their website. But at 63, we have the Ravens back again. And some good contracts have gone out at wide receiver. I do think this is another team that could try to invest in the tight end room if Mark Andrews is not necessarily safe. You also have, obviously, why am I forgetting names all of a sudden? My brain is mush. It's the end of a work day. It's a Friday. You guys know how it'd be. But obviously, Coastal Carolina tight end that you guys ended up bringing on and ended up giving a good extension to as well. Isaiah Likely is the name. I think that you guys could end up trying to double up there just in case, but let's evaluate some other positions. Running back's not a bad one. If you want to go after Nick Singleton, who would fit this team like hand in glove, that's kind of how you guys roll. Like Derrick Henry's not the youngest guy on planet Earth, signed a couple-year extension, but this is perfect for someone like who will have a 4 to 5 year contract there in Singleton. I personally would really love how that could turn out for y'all. Boundary corner's not out of the question. Again, you're just starting to get to uncomfortable territory. DJ McKinney would be the next guy I'd probably take. And to be fair, I do feel very comfortable because I feel very comfortable going after one of the smaller DBs. I'm going to go after D'Angelo Pons. If you guys feel comfortable with the idea of having Jair Alexander on the team, we're going to go after D'Angelo Velcro Pons. I absolutely love D'Angelo Pons. I think he would be an excellent asset both on the slot as well as the boundary. The problem is he is 5'9", but he plays like he is 6 foot 210. Like I don't understand how he does it, but he does. At number 64 for the Buffalo Bills, we ended up going after our star linebacker in Sonny Styles in the first. Really happy with how that ended up turning out. Here at this point, I do want to get some burning speed. Eugene Trey Wilson is someone who could be. I just want to see a little bit more health before I feel comfortable in that realm. I want to get a burner here, and I'm looking at Eric Singleton and Eric Rivers. Eric Rivers, I think, is smaller. No, he's not. 5'11", 180 versus Singleton at 5'10", 180. I didn't realize that. I'm going to go after Eric Rivers here. I think he clocked 23 miles per hour, which is insane. Shout out to James Foster, friend of the show. Like, he was crazy last year, and I'm excited to see him in a high octane offense there at Georgia Tech tonight. So we'll see how he ends up playing. But Eric Rivers, dude, he's going to fly. And I'm excited to see him go to the Bills and allow Josh Allen to have that deep throwing ability, because I just don't think right now the offense is catered to that. And number 65 for the Houston Texans via the New York Giants. This was via that trade up for Jackson Dart. We went Christian Miller, Parker Brailsford, Damon Claiborne. And it's hard to argue with that haul right there. I feel very happy with that haul. Like, just really good group. And I mean, you could look at the offensive line. I don't like what's right now available. There is one guard I think I would really, really like. And he's not listed here either, of course. He's a transfer to LSU. Josh Thompson from Northwestern. I love him. I mean, like, he's somebody who I think is going to be a star, like an actual star. And he has the mobility that Parker Brailsford has as well. I'm going to take him. We're going to have to use a placeholder. So the problem is I actually like all these guys except Connor Tollison. So we're going to use Connor as the placeholder, but it is someone who is not on my board, but I think he will end up being top 60, maybe top 50. It's Josh Thompson, guard out of LSU, transfer from Northwestern. You know, not the partner in crime because he's a right guard. I was going to say he's partner in crime to one of my favorite offensive linemen in the class, that left tackle there at number 3 in Caleb Tiernan. But he was actually at the right guard spot. Northwestern knows how to crank out offensive linemen. And again, Josh Thompson, guard out of LSU, formerly of Northwestern, there at number 65. Number 66 for the Cleveland Browns. They've been picking up a lot of receiving talent. So I do think that it's a position we should try to focus on at the moment, and a lot of good players here. And I mean a lot of them. Like, an insane amount of very good players. And someone who I think could end up really rising is J. Michael Sturdivant. We'll see if that ends up happening. Eric Singleton would be fun, but I want to get someone who's just really high floor and just reliable. And that's going to be someone that a lot of people like in Carnell Tate. They're going to get mad that he slipped to the third, but you know, he is just somebody that is good old reliable, but just worse in almost every category than Emeka Ibuka. And Emeka, as the reliable self he is, went at 20 last year. So if you're getting worse in every category, there's a lot of players who are slightly better in most categories. You're going to end up having him slide a little bit, but used to the cold weather, going to be a reliable weapon there for Cade Klubnik. And number 67 for the Tennessee Titans. We haven't had very many trades at this point, but again, right now, that's just kind of what happens. Sam Levitt is available. I do think this is the right opportunity for teams to try to make some moves. And again, we've gone after Caleb Downs and Chris Bell. My next position would be a pass rusher. And I have 2, if not 3 guys I really like. Technically, there's a lot more. But we're going to potentially take Malachi Lawrence. I feel very comfortable moving down and potentially losing out on him if we have to. So I'm thinking right now the proper team to move up is the Raiders. Raiders, you can move up, get your quarterback of the future that you can try to develop over a year. This range of trade is going to be inconsequential to this draft. So I'm seeing a gap right here from 181 to 103. I'm going to move back from 135 to 181. You can end up tossing something else in there if you like. I'm not going to. Okay, so the Raiders end up moving up here with the Titans to end up selecting their quarterback in Sam Levitt. So very happy for that. I'm going to double check and make sure that I did the trade right. I'm like, did I end up giving like a better deal to Vegas? If that ends up happening, I'll adjust it in a minute. But regardless, Philadelphia Eagles. So, I mean, we've gone after Banks, Kitzelman. Right now, we need to look at corner, and I think edge rusher is a dark horse. But corner right now, who's the best available? And I'm looking at Keith Abney here and DJ McKinney. Both of them, very talented players. Abney, a lot of people like Abney. So I think we're going to go the Howie way and go after the best player available. We're going to go after Keith Abney here out of Arizona State. Have Arizona State guys go back-to-back. New Orleans Saints have gone after the quarterback and edge rushing talent. Good spot to be in. Again, I think you could end up looking to upgrade the interior offensive line. It's a good interior class. That's why I've been focused on it. But I also think tight end at this point is really, really good. Like really good value at this point. And so I feel very comfortable looking at some top end options here. Justin Jolly, there's no fucking way this guy got to 263. I do not trust those numbers, but I mean, he's gone up from like 225 up to 255. And if he gets up to 263 and still flies the way he does, watch out. So we're going to go after Justin Jolly there at number 69. At number 70 for the Carolina Panthers, we got Peter Woods and Whit Weeks. The reason I also moved up is because I felt like I might take a swing on Levitt at number 67. Here at this spot, you could try to get someone like Nico Iamaleava or Carson Beck, like guys who I feel very comfortable with just being reliable. But I will say receivers not off the board. And I think the value is really good for a lot of these players. Chase Roberts is damn reliable, but the player I'm looking at is one that they don't really have, which is a gadget weapon. And I'm going to go after Eric Singleton here. I think he ends up complementing what they have right now in Tetro McMillan very well, Jalen Coker very well, and it adds another nice dynamic element. Number 71 for the Titans, I'm going to double check that we ended up getting more value. We did. Okay. We moved up to 135. I was just like, I need to make sure that I didn't trade back twice. But I feel very comfortable going after my number 5 player in the class. And this is the range where I think he'll go. Malachi Lawrence out of UCF. And yes, he is not on here. So we'll use a placeholder. And we'll have Will Helt because I talked about him very recently. Shout out to the draft professors. I think he's going to be a very solid weapon, but somebody who I don't think deserves to be in these conversations right now. So I'll use him as a placeholder for my number 5 player in the class, Malachi Lawrence. A couple other people actually have him very high. So I'm excited for that. Feel free to check him out. At number 72, we have the Indianapolis Colts. And so far, Fernando Mendoza, Dom Orange. Freaking love these guys, man. I mean, just such a good group. Again, we got that quarterback help already. Wide receiver core, one of the most underrated in the entire NFL. I could go for tight end depth at this point. Again, in the 3rd round, you're hoping to get guys who can start. Releasing Juju Brents is unique. I know that they'll want a little bit more explosiveness. And right now, like Xavier Scott would not be a horrible idea. Neither would DJ Harvey. Like this just fits a little bit more of what Lou is looking for. But I actually think linebacker at this point, the value is impeccable. And they're going to go after the best linebacker here in Kyle Lewis. Undersized, 220 pounds, but just an absolute dog. And I feel like that's worth it at 72. 73 for the Seahawks. We've gone LT Overton at Nick Harbor. Feel very happy with that. I'm going the boundary corner situation here, and I'm dropping all the way down to go DJ McKinney out of Colorado. Don't want another situation where you feel uncomfortable with, having a smaller guy on the boundary. DJ McKinney, 6'2". I hope he gets his weight back up to 190, but just a rock solid corner there that I would have felt very comfortable taking with the Jaguars at 74, who has just taken Connor Lew at this point. I do think defensive interior, underrated position to target. Looking at the guys who are available, you could go after a plug like Tim Keenan for the long haul. For me, why is he not on? I thought he was on here before. Texas Tech transfer Lee Hunter, really, really like him as well. Defensive back, not a bad idea, but I actually think I will be going that boundary corner route, even though we just lost out on DJ McKinney. They definitely like the flexibility of those slot/boundary players. And so I'm actually going to go after someone who's going to play exclusively in the slot because I think Jordan Lewis wants to play boundary. I'm going to look at Xavier Scott here. He's not a great athlete, but he's just a damn good player. And that just feels like something that you want in your locker room. Xavier Scott, slot corner/safety there out of Illinois. Number 75, from Seattle, DJ McKinney, Nick Harbor, LT Overton. Could try to go after a really solid backup quarterback right now. Got Jalen Daniels in there. But I would want someone who's a little bit more high floor as a passer. So I'd be looking at Carson Beck. That would be the next quarterback that I'm looking at. I'm not going to put Aiden Childs in this class because the dude's just turning 20. He's going to try to make a push for a 1st round. I just highly doubt he would come out in this class. But, it's kind of underrated to go after multiple edge rushers at this time. And I think the value is there with Joshua Josephs to the point where he actually complements LT Overton very well. He's undersized, so he's going to be a little more of a situational package guy. But I actually like that. And let me know what you guys think. Again, this is 3rd round pick, so it's not like the most crazy thing on planet Earth. But Joshua Josephs is someone who is a crazy athlete. I mean, pressure numbers through the roof. But 240 pounds, but he is pretty much like 80% of what we saw from someone who could have been a top 5 pick if he wasn't like a little bit of a loony there in James Pierce Jr. And he's going to have a chance to have a full offseason of development and be a true number one. I'm excited to see how that turns out. New England Patriots, we got Max Llewellyn, Jordan Tyson. Like, I love where we're headed here. I'm going to be going after the tackle position, not the running back position. This is where I'm looking at Austin Barber. Again, it's another player I'm worried about. Like having, I mean, Xavier Chaplin, he's kind of the exact opposite of what you guys have right now with Will Campbell. Like Xavier Chaplin is a true big ass tackle. And he's 6'8", 340 pounds, like almost 350, 6'7". And he's somebody who's a true left. But I mean, the question is, do you feel comfortable moving him to right? Now, Emil Wagner is the one who's getting a lot of love. He needs to add a lot of mass to himself. He's up to 300. Good for him. He's at 293 last year. But a really solid right tackle, still in the middle of development. I have him as a 4th round grade, but here at 76, I might just roll the dice on him. Again, a very weak tackle class. I think this is the prime opportunity to let Emil Wagner shine as the right tackle, and it's going to be kind of hard to get a downgrade there. So Emil Wagner should provide a higher floor option with a great ceiling. Number 77 for the Atlanta Falcons. Hoping McGarry ends up, speaking of offensive tackles, Obi, he gets healthy after signing that extension. But, you know, quarterback, hopefully that ends up working out. We've taken Brandon Cleveland so far. Good spot, in my opinion. They ended up going after some corner help very recently in free agency, you know, kind of signing guys to the bottom of the roster. I think you could end up actually going after DJ Harvey and trying to feel out whether your nickel is solved or not. Like, he's just such a good player, and this is just the right range for him to go that I'm just willing to take him and see what happens. He is a boundary corner, in my opinion, but he just has the size where he has to kick inside in the NFL. I do not trust USC's numbers at all. I think he's in the 5'8" range, but I mean, if he's 5'10", 190, definitely someone you could try to fit on the boundary. Steelers, Drew Allard, Charles Jagasaw. He's playing tackle for us. So really good spot. I like what we've done so far. I do think wide receiver is where we can end up sniping some really good value right now. And you talk about Malachi Fields bringing that big physical presence. I love it. He is a Steeler like through and through. I mean, just a really, really good player. 6'4", 222. I mean, I actually might try to snipe him at 98, so I'm actually going to leave it there. Trey Wilson could end up being the steal here. Denzel Boston, again, like he's somebody who I'm going to take soon. I just don't get excited about him, and that's probably my fault. But running back's an underrated position to target. It really is. I mean, we have 1 year left of Jaylen Warren. Who's to say that he's going to stay? Like Le'Veon Moss is someone who I love. Obviously, you guys know, like there's Desmond Reed, Jaheim White. So round 4, probably going to be someone that we should probably try to target. Maybe this is a good spot to trade back. Looking at the guys who I have available, still love Chase Roberts. I think he's my next best available based on everything. Noah Thomas as well. Big fan of Noah Thomas. I just do not see him getting the production. Preston Hodge, more of a nickel. Don't really think he's going to provide any value to us. Again, Lee Hunter, our defensive interior core, looks amazing right now with a lot of young guys in Benton, Wyatt Black, as well as our first round pick, obviously. So, we're doing really well. Wide receiver, CJ Daniels, though. Why is he not in here? The fuck? like, how are we not grading somebody who is one of the bigger transfers of this offseason? That's actually kind of crazy to me. We're going after CJ Daniels right now. Had no touchdowns last year, but it wasn't his fault. Like, he did a really good job there at LSU. He's now going to Miami, but that's my number 35 player, CJ Daniels, going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, just a rock solid wide receiver. I don't understand why people are not getting excited about him. Dolphins, we've gone after Antonio Williams, Dylan Thieneman. Love it. Could go after Denzel Boston here as well. Just continue loading up on the talent. Austin Barber, again, you can end up trying to load up on talent, but I think this is the time to just continue loading up on corner talent. And Dalen Everett is going to be one of those players who's higher floor. You could talk about Thaddeus Dixon in that aspect, Chandler Rivers in that aspect. Really good players all around, but I think Dalen's going to be the most likely higher floor option, even though I'm not the biggest fan of his game. Number 80, we have the Chicago Bears. Jeremiah Love and not Xavier Harris. We ended up going after Cole Brevard, defensive interior out of Texas. Love Cole Brevard. But I do think this is a good opportunity for the Bears, who have now addressed running back, who have pretty much all these other positions filled out. Could go after a guard at this point. I mean, there's developmental guys like Jaden Roberts, Josh Braun, that you could feel very comfortable growing, but that's kind of what day 3 is for. The position I'm looking at the most is corner and edge, or excuse me, safety and edge. And edge right now, there's some good players, but there's one that's not listed here. And it's one that you see on your screen right now at number 37, Samuel Okunlola out of Colorado. I think that he is a superstar. I'm going to use Ben Bell as the placeholder. Again, my number 37 player, Samuel Okunlola out of Colorado, about 250, 255 pounds. Just somebody who is so clean, has great technique. Big fan of his game. All right, number 81 for the Arizona Cardinals. We've already gone after that right tackle spot as well as a pass rusher. So I think right now, I think we got to just go after the reliable options here, which is just going after best player available. I think a lot of people really like Denzel Boston, and continuing to get height in your receiving core is never a bad idea for your quarterback. I think just going BPA is the right move. Number 82 for the Vikings, we've gone after Jeremy Bernard, Avion Terrell. Let's get that plug. Let's get the plug for the middle. He's dealing with some injuries. That's why he fell. Tim Keenan out of Alabama all day. Get a big plug. 83 for the Broncos. Gone after Kenyon Sadiq, Zane Durant. Really liking how this is turning out for them. Actually, probably would have been a better spot for Denzel Boston, but Chase Roberts, underrated weapon for him. Somebody they'll probably try to snipe on day 3. Malachi Fields, another very good one. You could try to get a little bit of thunder to the Lightning. I mean, you go Nick Singleton at the moment. I think the value is impeccable for him, and you could end up pairing him up with RJ Harvey for a nice 1-2 punch. I'm going to go after the value there. At number 84 for the Miami Dolphins, again, we've gone after Dalen Everett, Antonio Williams, and Dylan Thieneman. This is where I feel comfortable going after a high-end backup in Carson Beck. He's going to be used to Miami. He's going to be a high-level processor. I think he's just better than the quarterbacks Miami has right now, and especially with some injury concerns and maybe some organizational change, they're going to see if maybe they could snipe a midday prospect that some people thought could go number 1. At 85 for the Green Bay Packers, we did not go after Antonio Kite. Which cornerback did we go after? Jontez Williams, if I'm not mistaken, out of Iowa State, my number 47 player, if you guys see it right there. I think here at number 85, they're very good when it comes to value. So I feel very comfortable going after a multitude of positions. I honestly don't think linebacker's out of the question here with Deontay Lawson. I mean, just need to see him get healthy. That's the big question mark at the moment. But I do like to get a really dynamic back. And you guys know where I'm going with this. Someone who I have a lot of love and respect for. He might be 5'7", but I think he's one of the best backs in the country. Jaheim White out of West Virginia. I think he's punchy. I think he's dangerous. I really do see there to be like a really big amount of carries to be siphoned off from the back end backs that I just think it's very, very heavily weighted on Josh Jacobs' production. And Jaheim White is dynamic. He's electric, and he's used to that RBBC role, and he's going into a little bit more heavy of a workload this year. We'll see how that works out. 86 for the Buccaneers. Gone after David Bailey, Max Clara. I want to go after a contested catch threat, and that is where I'm going to deploy someone who I've talked about a billion times, Malachi Fields out of Notre Dame, formerly of Virginia, someone who's going to end up pairing up very, very well with Emeka Egbuka for the long run. 87 for the Chargers, Keldrick Falk as well as a center. Trying to remember which one. I believe this might be the Lyndon Cooper one. I don't think there's any other centers that I had that was a placeholder, but good spot. Good spot for him to be. I do think that you could look at more wide receiver talent. Again, this is the good range for those wide receivers. And looking at where you might be able to get good value, I'm looking at Jaden Greathouse here, who's just been so reliable for Notre Dame. So we're seeing a small run of Notre Dame receivers there. 88 for the Commanders, got Cassius Howell at number 29. Here at number 88, I think you could try to go after a top-end running back. The value is just impeccable. And to me, it's Le'Veon Moss or Mekhi Hughes. Mekhi is just so reliable. And I just think Le'Veon Moss is the better athlete. I want to see Bill combined with Le'Veon Moss for a top-end running back duo. Number 89 for the Bengals. I'm excited to see how their running back situation ends up playing out, but they've gone their edge rusher and cornerback duo for the time being. I think they need to go offense. And a lot of good players here. Armaj Reed Adams, Olavi Vega, Ione, But I think they're going to go after someone who is super high floor here in Josh Braun, guard out of Kentucky, 340 pounds at guard. Just really high floor player. At number 90, we have the Rams, and they got Isaiah World, John Mateer, Malik Muhammad, the big name crew. We're going to go after the speed here and Trey Wilson, the third out of Florida. Hopefully he stays healthy, but got to be able to take advantage when we can. At 91 for the Jacksonville Jaguars went Connor Lew and Xavier Scott. Feels a little underwhelming, got to admit, but running back I do think is not out of the question here. The problem is Mekhi Hughes, I feel like, has some issues that actually are pretty equal there with LaQuint Allen. And I would have loved, I think Desmond Reed is a really good choice here. He's very small, but he's just a really good back. I think Bishal Tootin could end up having that as well. So we'll see if Tootin ends up being the one. In Allen, I think you could have ended up sniping both of them. And I really love seeing that. It does suck to see Muma just go. He just did not end up developing the way you want. And I do think CJ Allen, Deontay Lawson are worth it at this point. We're going to go after Deontay Lawson. At 92 for the Niners, I honestly might just rock another linebacker. Nick Martin's been doing a great job, though. We might need to go wide receiver at this point. It just looks like they're just trying to continue to patch that position with value. Chase Roberts just feels to me like DeMarcus Robinson. And in terms of the very underrated, just going to consistently be on the team and make plays, or be on a team and make plays. I actually really like the value here. Very reliable pass catcher, just a bit older. 93 for the Chiefs. We got Jermont McCoy as well as a guard there from Kansas and Kobe Baines. Now, here at this point, I don't think a wide receiver is out of the question, but I do want to take advantage of really good tight end play. And you got John Michael Gillenberg here. I don't really think Raritan's not going to be taken. He's my number 48 player. I love him to death. Where do I have JMG? Where's John Michael Gillenberg? He's somewhere in here. 87. And I think this is a good range for him. Very good vertical threat. Underrated blocker. He's a feisty guy. Maybe not the most productive, but definitely somebody who can, he would be worth his weight in salt. Or sugar. Whatever the hell the phrase is. Eagles. Gone after a corner, tight end, defensive interior. I think that's the exact holy trinity that we're looking for. Now I honestly would want to go potentially after some offensive line talent. If there is someone who I have a lot of faith in, you got Xavier Chaplin here, who you could see growing and developing into somebody special. I don't think it's probable. Jaden Roberts, if healthy, has the chance to, but I'm just going to be honest. Just continue doing what you're doing. I do think running back's an underrated position. Wide receiver looks like it's something you just want to continue patching. Running back's not a bad idea. Taking off some carries from Saquon is just never a bad idea. Desmond Reed being more of a reliable catching back is something that I think could be really awesome. Or Mark Fletcher, if he just gets his carrying down a little bit better, less fumbles. I do think the Eagles are a dark horse team to go after a star running back. It's something I'm actually kind of considering right now. But I will say safety is something that I want to look at as well. You got Zakee Wheatley here, who I think could end up being a good asset. Keon Saab as well. But I'm actually going to go after Tao Johnson here, who has some ability to play in the slot if you have the long-term vision. Tao is someone who could play both free, strong, and slot. I love the flexibility of his game. I mean, you look at him, 6'1", 200. I think you just got to go after the best player here. We're going to go after Tao Johnson out of Utah. 95 for the Ravens. You got Tomas Rimac as well as D'Angelo Pons. And so I'm going to look at some defensive interior help here, go after a plug. And you got Dante Corleone here. I don't think I could ignore it. Let's go after the Godfather. And number 96 for the Bills. Let's also try to go to the defensive interior. What's CJ's weight at? 305. Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. But Darrell Jackson, probably going to be the guy I go after here. Love DeMonte Capehart. Kind of feels like an upgraded version of Dwayne Carter. But Darrell Jackson's going to get a lot of hype. I think he ends up being a really solid, reliable option there at 96. 97 for the Vikings. They've gone Tim Keenan, Jeremy Bernard, Avion Terrell. I love the balance. I really do. It's a good group. And honestly, I might just go back to the corner core and just continue developing it as much as I can. A lot of people love Will Lee. I think he's a good player. Honestly, it's probably the guy who I'll go after. Willie's just a reliable player. Chandler Rivers, Thaddeus is a dude, though. Thaddeus is a dog. I'm excited to see Chapel Bill take him and move him to where he belongs. So we're going to go after Thaddeus Dixon. 98 for the Steelers. Thaddeus might have been the guy who I ended up going after. We ended up going after my number 37 player, I believe, or excuse me, 35, CJ Daniels. At number 78, we also went Charles Jagasaw and Drew Aller. Good group of guys. Again, safety class so far hasn't really looked too exciting for me. I do think this is where we could try to go after another running back, like I was talking about, and we just need someone with a higher ceiling athletically. And I wish I ended up having my Pookie Bear here in Jaheim White. I do not. We're gonna go Desmond Reed out of Pittsburgh. We're gonna keep him in town. Might be on the lighter side, but dude, he is dynamic. He is super fun. Eagles at number 99. Oof. I might go Austin Barber just for the talent, but I mean, you got to go after top end talent right now. Eagles so far: Tao Johnson, Abney, Kitzelman, and Banks. I'm going to look at the edge core and continue developing there as well. And Anto Saka might be the guy who I go after. Looking at the edge rushers that I have next, we've already gone after Malachi Lawrence out of UCF. Let's see. Do we have anybody else? We've already gone after Okun Lola. I'm like, is there anybody who I haven't taken? Derek Moore. Derek Moore is a very good pass rusher. Mikhail Kamara is a really high floor player, but actually, I like that. Derek Moore is a good player. He's 6'3", 260 as well. Very reliable build. Good pass rusher. I want him to be a little better as a run defender. We're going to go after him there. Jaguars, honestly, good for depth right now. I'm going to go after Gabe Akis to end this all off. Gabe Akis, just like high floor, edge rusher, big build, young. We'll see what happens. But thank you guys again for watching. We made it through. Holy Toledo. We did it. But Opes isn't our playbook yet. That's perfectly fine with me. But that's a review right there. We will go to the full results so you guys get to see it. Again, a lot of placeholders. That's going to disappear as time goes on, but you guys have supported me. And again, thank you to our sponsor for being able to support us and grow the episode and grow the show. Thank you again. See you later. Peace.